Hello, dreamers, doers, and achievers. I'm Tyson, your host, and I invite you to join me on a new adventure called Sharing Success with Tyson. Each week, we dive into the most inspiring stories of individuals who have transformed their dreams into reality. From the entrepreneurs who started from nothing to the artists who see the world differently, we share the journeys that inspire and motivate. Whether you're looking to ignite a long-held passion or find encouragement in your daily grind, Sharing Success with Tyson is your weekly dose of motivation. Together, let's redefine success and achieve the extraordinary. Hi guys, before we jump into this episode, I just wanted to give a quick trigger warning. There is talk of abandonment, drugs, eating disorders, domestic abuse, and mental health issues in this episode. Because this was my first recording of this style, there's also a lag and a little bit of audio issues, so please bear with me, and I hope you guys enjoy the episode. There we go. All right. So thank you so much for joining. I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. First things first, how are you today?
I am great. It's the end of the month. It's a Friday.
It worked out perfectly, right?
Yeah.
I know, it really did. It's that nice fresh start that we all need going into summer for
Yes.
sure.
Yes. Very, very good.
Yes. Yes. So I'm going to introduce you real quick
Okay.
to listeners, and then I'll let you kind of go from there. I'll ask you some questions, but everybody, we are so excited. We have Amber Bride with us. Amber is a fighter. She's a mother, a philanthropist, and a lifelong learner. And she is going to share her ongoing journey to success with us today. She has been in recovery for over 5 years. She's a certified peer support specialist and an active member of several recovery nonprofits. She aims to help break the addiction stigma and to bring hope to others by letting people know that there is many different ways to achieve success.
Yes.
Perfect. How did I do, Amber? What did I miss there?
I think you covered all the bases. And well, listen, I'm not gonna lie. Like at first when I heard it, because you were like, "Hey, I did your like introduction," so I was like, "Okay, like I need to know what I'm walking into, right?" And so when I was like, "Wait," she called me what did you say? Oh, the philanthropist, right? And I was like, "Wait a
Yeah.
minute, like." I'm not that. Like, I don't have any of my own businesses. Like, I do not have money. I don't have any of these things, right? So I started like spinning out. I was all in my head. I called my friend. I was freaking out. I was like, wait, I think that like I'm the wrong person for this podcast. I don't even know what I'm
No,
doing.
no,
And then
absolutely not.
I looked at the definition. I screenshot it to her, and she's like, "Well, you are all those things." And I said, "Okay, fine. Like I'm doing it.
Yes,
It's gonna be good."
exactly. You were giving back to your community. Like you're great. You were all those things. So give yourself some credit there, girl. I love it. I love it. Honestly, I have some questions for you. I'm so curious
Okay.
about you and your journey. So I'm just gonna hop into it. Are you okay with that?
All right. Yep. Let's go.
Okay, cool. So first things first. Can you tell me about your background and just the journey that led you to where you are today?
Um, well, I mean, it's kind of been a long journey, right?
Yeah.
Discovering my why. It starts, I mean, I could go all the way back to like 4, right? When my parents
Yeah.
left me.
Okay.
Um, they were like, "Hey, we're gonna go find a job. Grandma, will you babysit her?" And like, they just never came back.
Wow.
Um, and then there was just living with grandma. Grandma had very high, um, she had her own baggage, right? So there's like this
Yeah.
high expectation. There's a lot of distorted things that I was fed and brainwashing that happened.
Yeah.
Um, and then at 11, it was like, well, I don't want to do this anymore. And she was wealthy, right? So then
Okay.
it was, okay, I'm going to put you in the system and I'm going to pay for other people to raise you. And I'm going to use my money to kind of dictate what that looks like. Um,
Mm.
right. So I'm in these programs, but I'm like the only private pay. So
Yeah.
like, right. So it's like I'm there, but it's different, right?
Yeah.
Like my diet's different
Mhm.
because her whole thing is like image, right? You
Yeah.
have to be this size, otherwise the world won't accept you. You won't be loved. You won't be, the world will reject you if you're not a size 0,
Yeah.
right? And so just all this craziness of that society of things. And at 17 it was, well, you're just not getting it. You're a waste of money. So I'm not paying and you're
Yeah.
not coming home. So then I was homeless. Um, and then I kind of like couch hopped from like friends' houses, and I had a friend that allowed me to stay with, I'd their grandparents took me in because they were just like, we love her, and I didn't love myself enough to think that I was worth it, right? So
Yeah.
then I started in
Yeah.
school, and I was like, well, I don't have anybody to answer to for some of my life, so like
Yeah.
I'm just gonna like burn the whole house down
Yep.
because
Do
I
whatever.
whatever. And I want to like stay out late and I want to party with boys and like I want to
Yeah.
do whatever I want to do. Um, and so I did.
Hmm.
And I got taken advantage of. And I had a lot of like kind of darkness in that. And then I ended up finding my 2 kids' dad. And he asked his grandparents if I could move in. And so that started that relationship. Well, not
Okay.
initially, like I moved in with them and we were just friends,
Yeah.
and then like 3 weeks into that, his grandpa ended up dying.
Wow.
So then I was there, and kind of I'm the type of person, like I look back now and I'm like always that type of person that like runs into the burning house, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like disaster happens and I'm the one that's like cooking the meals and like planning, like making sure everyone's okay, and right, and
Yep.
like I'm that person. So then his grandma was like, like God sent you to us and I'm so grateful that you're here, and will you come with us to Denver and to Montana for the funeral and the memorial service? And so over that time is how we ended up starting dating, and then
Okay.
we moved to California, and then
Yeah.
2 years later we had our daughter,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And then it quickly wasn't so wonderful anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then it was like, oh, this is going to end really, really bad if
Yeah.
I don't get out.
Yes.
Um, so I was like, I'm going to leave. Then I found out I was pregnant with our son.
Oh, okay.
And then it was like, well, wait, like, what am I supposed to do? But at that time, like, he'd already like moved on, right? He'd already
Yeah.
was with someone else and married her. And his grandma was telling me like, hey, like they got married,
Wow.
and so right, so there's a lot of hurt and pain, and right, and then that's feeding me, right? I'm feeling
Yeah.
like I am less than because, well, I gained weight and I'm this, and that's why all this is happening, right? I'm
Yeah.
to my outer appearance of who I am.
Hmm.
Um, but I knew that like my kids needed me, right? I knew that
Yeah.
I needed to be a mom. I knew that like I was going to do everything that I could to never let my kids feel like they weren't enough or they weren't loved.
Yep. I love
So
that.
I was like, I'm just going to do what I have to do.
Yep.
So I did the best that I could, thought I was healed. Then I ended up, dating my youngest kid's
Hmm.
dad,
Yeah.
thinking I'm healed. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, wait, I'm not healed. There's a
Yep.
bunch of red flags here. What am I
Yep.
doing? Deja vu. I can't do
Yeah.
this. What? No, no, no.
Yep.
And he's like, no, like I'm not that. And I'm like, no, 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 no. And he's like, I'm going to show you. And I'm like, no, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, find out I'm pregnant. And everyone's like, how did you not know? And I'm like, I don't know. I was on birth control. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't even know how
Yeah.
this is happening. Like, what?
Yep.
And So anyways, I'm like, great. Like, okay. Like, my picker's broken. And like, it's a joke. Like, really? Like,
What's happening?
like, hey, like,
Yeah.
but still, right, I'm like staying the course. I'm like trying to be the best mom and show up and do all the things. And I was fortunate, because through it all, right, like I still was willing to, um, I forgave my first kids' dad
Okay.
because it was like not about me, right?
Yeah.
I knew what it was like to not have parents.
Yeah.
So it was, and same thing, right? And then I ended up marrying, um, my my last child, like my youngest kid's dad, and
Okay.
we we did the best we could.
Yeah.
But we both had, it's hard to know how to love someone and how to be in a relationship when you've never had that example and you don't love yourself, right?
Absolutely.
And so it was very toxic and off and on and off and on.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like we hated each other, we loved each other, and that's like very codependent of like I'm leaving, we're separating, we're doing counseling, like
Yeah.
we're taking a break, we're on again, off again, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, we're so sick of you two, right? So through it all, I had a lot of traditions, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
Christmas, holidays, birthdays, like I would go all out.
Yeah.
Like I love event planning. That has always
Yeah.
been something for me. Traditions. Part of it though is I had no idea, like realistically, what anything healthy looked like, right?
Yeah.
So it was my grandma was very unhealthy and had
Mm-hmm.
very high unrealistic expectations,
Yeah.
and she had lots of money. So it was either like she wasn't there or she
Mm-hmm.
was like these elaborate, like taking all of her employees and families to like Branson, Missouri, and
Wow.
like cruises and things like that, right? Like that's unrealistic. Like who does, like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You can say that that's what they do for like Christmas
Yeah.
or watching the Hallmark Channel, right? So like these are my visions of like, oh, this is normal. And then I ended up getting a job. I was a supervisor at a youth treatment center, right? And I
Okay.
was like, oh, this is a calling,
Yeah.
right? I know what it's like. I can connect with them. I was the youngest supervisor. I had promoted quicker than anybody because I had the ability.
Yeah.
Um, I had gotten all my hours. I'd done all my stuff. I was a test away from being a licensed substance abuse counselor, and I was like I have it.
Yeah.
And then I got hurt. I hurt my back, and I woke up one morning and I just couldn't. I couldn't stand up,
Wow.
and I went to the doctor, and it was like physical therapy that made it worse.
Yeah.
Had some MRIs, had all this stuff done, and they and this was back before like the opiate crisis, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this when like you would go to the doctor and like you're walking out with like everything,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So that's what happened to me. Tried physical therapy for like 2 weeks, didn't work, made it worse. Get my MRI, and they're like, oh, like you have scoliosis, you have bulging herniated discs, you have, rheumatoid arthritis. Here's some morphine, here's some Roxy's, here's some Lyrica, here's some, trazodone,
Yeah.
whatever. And I was like,
Just.
okay, well,
Yep.
and at the time, right, like I was taking it as prescribed.
Yeah.
Well, everyone around me could see it, right? I'm dropping weight, I'm
Yeah.
irritable, I'm sleeping, I can't get off the couch. Um, right, my whole behavior and everything changed. I
Yep.
ended up losing my job because my doctor wouldn't sign the paper because he's like, if you restrain a kid and it goes wrong, like you could break your back and be paralyzed. Like
Yeah.
you are
Mhm.
not going back that field.
Yep.
So then I'm like, what? What do you mean? Like this is my
Like, wait.
calling. How do
Yep.
you what how are you taking this from me?
Yep.
Then it turned into I'm sharing my pills with my husband, right?
Yeah.
Then he had a knee injury, and right, and so now then this is like a whole thing.
Yeah.
Then we get separated, and then he comes back, and then it was like we're now married like 15 years. Yeah. And I come home, and he's like, I'm done. Like, I just don't want to do it anymore. And at this point, right, like I'm pretty heavy into like I'm taking more than I'm supposed to, because it wasn't working, and my doctor's like, oh well, I'd been on it for so long now, and at this point, they're getting more aware of the right, and so now
Yeah.
they're like starting to pull back the reins, and I'm like, well, you prescribed this, and now I've been on it this long, and now it's not working. Now you're telling me you're concerned about this. Well, I don't
Yeah.
care because my kids are little. I don't
Yeah.
care in 10 years because they'll be grown. I want to be
Mhm.
able to play with my kids now.
Yeah.
So I'm medicating myself, I'm running out, I'm all the things. So then he tells me that, and I'm broken,
Yeah.
right? I'm broken in a way that it's like, God, like I did all the right things. I was a good baby's mom. I was a good wife. I was a good mom. I
Yeah.
went to church. I did everything to
Yeah.
what just keep surviving and barely surviving. Like I'm sick of the storm. I'm sick of it all.
Mhm.
Um, and I then found heroin,
Mhm.
and it was like the missing piece,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
It was like, oh, like where have you been my whole life?
Yeah.
Because in that moment, right, it was like my head was quiet. Like I didn't have the chatter of my grandma telling me like you're fat and you're never going to be
Yep.
successful. If you would have
Yep.
just listened to me, I didn't have
Mhm.
all of my failures. I didn't have like, oh, yet again, like I can't keep a man.
Yeah.
Like now my kids, like, you know what I'm saying? How am I going to
Yeah.
keep this house out? Like
Yep.
I didn't have physical pain. It was
Yep.
just all,
It solved all your problems.
yeah. I was like, oh, okay. Um, but then I didn't like being lazy, right? So then it
Yeah.
was like, oh, well, if you do like a bump of this with this, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Then like it'll like level it out.
Yeah.
And then I had like the delusion of, okay, well, like I'm just gonna do this for a short period of time,
Yep.
and then I'm just gonna sell a little bit, and I'm
Mhm.
gonna save some money, and I'm gonna get an apartment, and I'm gonna get my kids back, and like I'm gonna go back to like being a mom and
Yeah.
getting a job, right? Oh no.
Mhm. No.
Like I went down like the rabbit hole so quick
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so fast. I was like,
Yeah.
wait, did I like eat the
You're like,
mushroom,
how did I
drink the
get here?
and I was like, did I eat the mushroom, drink the tea? Like, I don't even know. Like, am I
Yeah.
feet small? Like, I'm drowning? Like, I don't even know what is
Yeah.
happening. But like, there's no way out of
Yeah.
this. So yeah, so that took me out for a little bit of time, and I was fortunate enough that my husband, he was hearing some things, and he
Okay.
wasn't fully educated on heroin, right? Because when he had used like in his younger years, like meth was his DOC, so all he knew was like the scary stuff.
Yeah.
So he was like, "She's gonna die. I'm gonna have to like bury my kids' mom,
Yeah.
right?"
Yeah.
So like he threw himself in the game to basically like pull me out and like
Wow.
remind me like, what are you doing?
Yep.
Unfortunately though, like we both got lost in it.
Yeah.
Um and then right, like when you're broken and codependent, then like you're just like, well, like I don't want to do it alone.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Yep.
And so we did that for a while, and that was not fun.
Yeah.
And then we both had some scary, run-ins and episodes, and
Mm.
Um, I finally had, my last kind of like overdose that I had, or I was alone in a public bathroom, like it was a blizzard outside. Um, and it was kind of one of those moments, like I didn't even know how like I came out of it, or
Yeah.
and I was just like, uh, the next day had to go to like my IOP, and they were like, we need to finish doing your intake, and like we need you to UA, and I was just like, oh. I was trying
Yeah.
to like come up with some excuse, like I gotta go to work, and they're like, "No, you really have to do this." Like your APP officer is like asking, like it's been 3 weeks and you've been ducking and dodging.
Yeah.
And so like I go back to her office and I sit in the chair and I just start bawling, and she was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No," and I'm definitely like peeing dirty,
Yeah.
like, but I
Yeah.
don't want to go to jail, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, you got to tell your PO." But like I will like advocate for you because I don't think that like jail's the answer. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking like, cool, cool, right? Like all I heard was like jail's not the answer. Just
You're
tell
like,
your
great.
PO. So I tell him, and of course he's like, oh, just keep your appointment. I'll see you in a few days. So I'm like, what? I really am like not going to jail?
Yeah.
Ugh. I mean, in hindsight, they were probably really seeing like, is she gonna like get clean?
Yeah. Yeah.
My brain was like, oh, I really am like, cool.
You're like, I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I go to my appointment and like he's all, you gonna pee clean today? And I said, no. And he
Yeah.
goes, well, let's go for a walk. Cause I'm from St. George.
Okay.
So like the APP office is like, right here. And then there's
Yeah.
like a sidewalk and the jail's right
Okay.
here.
Okay.
So he's like, stand up, put your hands behind your back, let's go for a walk. And I was like,
Yep.
oh man,
Yep.
you're taking me to jail? So now I'm pissed, right? Because now I'm
Yeah.
like, you set me up, she set me up. Like, this is all bullshit. Best thing for me, I go to jail, I get over my bitterness, I get over myself.
Yeah.
Um, my daughter, who I missed her 18th birthday, tells me, well, I'm 18 now, and me and my boyfriend are like leaving the state, and I'm not telling you where I'm moving because I'm done doing this shit with my parents.
Yeah.
You're not going to be in my life. Like, you're not going to be at my wedding.
Wow.
Like, but like, what do you say? Because that is
Yeah.
the truth, right?
Yeah.
And it was harder for them with me because
Yeah.
I was the safety net, right? Like they had gone through some stuff with their dad, and
Mhm.
all the things, and I was the one that was their safety net. And I
Mhm.
decided to like in that moment be like, oh, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I had a harder road to come back from, but that's why I am so passionate about what I do today, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And that's kind of the journey that led me to where I am, right? As
Mhm.
like a certified peer and the advocacy that I do.
Love it. Yeah. So, was hearing your daughter say that to you, was that your aha moment, or what was the moment where you decided like this has got to change? I need to turn my life around.
Hearing my daughter say that,
Yeah.
because like, I mean, because the thing is right, like when I found out I was pregnant with my daughter, I had told myself like I will never be my mom, I will never be my dad.
Yeah.
Like I will never have my kids feel like they're not loved and they're not enough.
Yeah.
So for her to say that, I was like, oh my god, like I'm my mom.
Yeah.
Like I really just did this to my daughter.
Yep.
Like I really have my daughter feeling like I felt my whole life. Like
Yeah.
I literally just passed this on to her.
Mhm.
Oh no, we're not doing that.
Yeah. And that's so interesting because probably in your mind at the time, you were like, well, technically, I didn't grow up with my mom a lot. I grew up a different way, so I'm not going to end up, like her. And you were
Yeah.
probably just trying to stay away from, I want to make sure that, my kids have something stable, where they weren't in the situation that I was in. But in your actions, it's almost like you were doing something similar to your kids,
Yeah.
even though you were thinking, I'm not going to be like that. You didn't realize along the way where you're like, oh shit, like that's what happened.
Well, and it really, I mean, and that's the thing, right? And it's coming to light more and more, right? Like, um, being a certified peer and the healing that you do, right? I'm over 5 years sober, but the work never stops, right?
Yeah.
um there's still stuff that comes up, and I'm still healing, and I'm still, because this shit, like I said, it goes all the way back to like when I was little.
Yeah.
And so, um and I'm fortunate enough now that my daughter's my best friend, and we do lots of workshops and stuff together, and we just did an amazing arrow break workshop.
Okay.
And but it's hard because part of that workshop is, um, you go through a process of like what your mind, right, the negative
Mhm.
self, the negative pieces of your mind and your self-talk and those things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you kind of share it with the group. It's a very vulnerable thing.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing her share, and I'm like looking in a mirror, right?
Yep.
I'm just
Yep.
like, right. And I thought that I was doing a really good job at masking those things of
Yeah.
myself, right? Like,
Yep.
I thought that I was doing a good job at like masking like my pain and like my body issues and like my self-harm and all of those things. But like, when I see my kids go through like the struggles, and like even with my boys, right? My boys have struggled with like their mental health.
Yeah.
My youngest has struggled with like, you know, um, a suicide attempt, and like, my daughter has her struggles and all those things. And it's like the people around us, especially our kids, like they pay attention to all the things that we aren't saying, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I thought that I was like doing a good job at like pretending to eat when I like really wasn't eating,
Yeah.
because I in that moment I was like, oh, I put on a few pounds. Like my daughter was paying attention,
Yeah.
right? When
Yep.
I was going through my episodes of like self-hatred, like they were picking up on that.
Yep.
And so now it's like, now that I'm healthy though, and I'm in a space where I talk about it, right? I talk about
Yep.
mental health. I talk about my recovery, and I'm loud about it, and you know what I'm saying? Like it's
I
just who I
love
am.
that.
Like
Yep.
the gas station, the grocery store, like
Yep.
all of my attire that I wear is all of the things.
Yeah.
We get to have those conversations, but it is right. Like it is those things. I thought I was doing a better job. In a lot of ways, I did, but in a lot of ways, I did pass that on.
Yeah. But it's interesting though, because hearing you talk about it and the journey that you've been on, which I'm sorry I haven't said this yet to this point, but you should, and I can tell you have every right to be so proud of yourself. Hearing the journey from what you went through in childhood to all the way where you are now, I I would not be standing. I And the fact that you were able to like flip it and change the narrative, you took charge of it, right?
Yeah.
And because of that, you're impacting so many people, and your kids especially. What a testament that would be to see your parent switch like that, and then to go through the rest of your life saying, no, I watched my mom do this, I know that I can get through all the hard things. Wow.
Thank you.
That's amazing. I One of my questions, which I thought about as you were talking about how your daughter picked up on a lot of your habits growing up, even though you really tried to keep it under wraps. I think this is important for listeners. As a woman, you struggled. It sounds like you struggled a lot growing up with body image and trying to be other people's perception of what you should be. And it seems like you've healed a lot of that now. for people who are struggling out there, especially with body image and looks, because we all have people looking to us saying you need to be this certain thing. What helped you break that successfully? How did you get out of that? And I understand it's a lifelong battle, truly, but what were some key things you did?
Um, I mean, I think honestly, the biggest thing for me is I'm a firm believer of like your circle of influence, right? Like,
Yeah.
you have to be aligned with your values.
Yep.
Um, a key component for me was knowing what my values are and my definition of them, right? Not like the
Yeah.
Webster Dictionary or society's
Yeah.
definition of them. But like, if I'm going to say family is a value or integrity or spirituality or whatever, what does that mean to me? Like, right? What
Yes.
is my definition?
Yeah.
And what are things that I do on a daily basis to practice that value so that I can stay, aligned with that? And
Yep.
then I'm fortunate enough that I'm surrounded with people that I look at their lives and I look at their journeys and I look at what they're doing, and even like the nonprofits that I'm a part of,
Yeah.
I believe in their impact for the community.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm reminded on a daily basis that like my worth has nothing to do with like what I look like, right?
Yeah.
Um, and right, because I still have days where I'm like, I don't want to. Why do you want me to? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm like, I don't have anything to wear. Like, I ain't going shopping for clothes and right
Yep.
and all these things, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like I my story and what I have been able to accomplish has nothing to do with the fact that I have, broken teeth and that, I have split ends or that I'm overweight or that, you know what I'm saying? Like I
Yeah.
embrace who I am because like that is who I am, right?
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
I am every day working to be a healthier version of me, but
Mhm.
that's not about how much I weigh or the size of my clothes. And that's the
No.
same thing about like recovery, right?
Yep.
Um, you know, recovery isn't a one size fits all, right?
Yeah.
Spirituality isn't a one size fits all. Like, so, I mean, to anybody that's listening, if, it's not about, I wish I could look like that. I wish I could wear that. Like, if you're comfortable wearing it, wear it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Make sure if you have people in your life who are like, why would you wear that? Like, they don't need to be in your life.
Absolutely. I've been so big on that lately. And something that is interesting to think about is the moment that you like decided to embrace your authenticity and say
Yeah.
like this is me and that you were loud and proud about it, that put you in the space to make an impact on other people. And so it's just kind of a testament to when we kind of get past what society thinks that we need to be and we define our own version of who we want to be and we go for it, there's nothing that will hold you back.
Yeah. One, and that's the thing too, right? Like I used to like not take pictures, right? Or it was
Yeah.
always like the selfie, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like, or you can take a picture from like here up, right? And it's like
Hmm.
always like the angle or you know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yep.
Like it's gotta be a filter or like you better tell me you're taking a picture so I can like angle it or whatever.
Hmm.
And like now it's like, you know what? Like I don't care. Like I'm doing these things and I'm there and I want memories and I want to have it. And you're either going to like love me or not.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I am who I am because of who I am, not
Yeah.
what I look like.
Yeah.
So, um, and the people around me don't care.
No, and I think you're right. That's you want to surround yourself, that circle of influence. You want to be around people that are busy chasing their own too busy, you know, working on their own
Yeah.
success, that they're not gonna judge you about anything. And to that effect, I think, my opinion is, when you show up authentic, when you're like real and you're like, this is just me, you hop in the photos because you know that that's what life's about, it, like, people glow. You can tell when somebody's
Yes.
being authentic. You can tell when they're just embracing life and they're being their best selves. And that's what beauty is, you know? It's not like what society wants it to be. It's when you're you.
Yes. I
So,
agree. I love that.
I yeah, I your story is, it's amazing, and I could talk to you about it all day. But tell me, tell me tell me, you kind of touched on it a little bit. Tell the listeners what you're doing now for work and events that you do and stuff like that.
Um, so I am a certified peer support specialist, which some people know what that is, some people don't. Basically, what it is a certified peer support specialist is um, it's a training that the state, almost every state, pretty much every state has it. The state holds the curriculum for it. So it's a training that you go through. It's a certificate. There's, boundaries and ethics that you're held to. Um, Typically, you have to be in recovery, whether it's drugs, alcohol, mental health, for at least a year. You'll have, an application you fill out, your story, and then recommendation letters. The impact that this has on right, our community and society as a whole is anybody that has struggled or gone through something. There's a difference between having someone who has lived experience showing up and walking you through something versus someone who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
And listen, I'm not taking away from anybody who's school or the clinical, right? Because there's
Hmm.
a place for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is, us bridging a gap for us to be a team together to say, hey, look, like, I have the lived experience, so I know how to connect to them and build that rapport and that trust so that you can get to them on a level to like tell them and approach it and where you need to, but they're never going to hear you because like you don't understand what it's
Yeah.
like to be there, right? And so
Yep.
so that, I mean, and that's my why, right? And
Yeah.
it's a 24/7, right? I mean,
Yep.
it's not like a 9 to 5, and so that's a cool thing. Um, and that's where I can take it everywhere I go. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I work at Mental Health America of Utah, which is an amazing organization. It's an all peer organization. We have a drop-in center. All of our services also are free, so you don't need
Oh.
insurance, and it doesn't cost anything. We run off grants and donations. And we have three different components. So we have our drop-in center that's open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and we will do like peer one-on-one. We will do like classes, groups, different things like that.
Okay.
And then we have our street outreach team that goes out and tries to connect with those that struggle, serious mental illness, refer
Yeah.
them to the drop-in. And then we have a respite center that kind of fills that gap for those, hopefully that step so that they don't have to go into the hospital, right?
Yeah.
So that they can
Okay.
kind of have that reprieve.
Okay.
Um, on my free time, though, what I really, really like to do, I love to plan events and I love to
I
be of
love.
service.
I love
That
that.
is like breathing air for me.
Yeah.
um, so I partnered with a really good friend of mine, Brian, who is the founder of UAPS, which stands for Utah Association of Peer Support Specialists.
Oh,
He trains. He's one of the trainers for Utah,
wow. Okay.
spreading the word and getting it out to like the prisons and to,
Hmm.
all over the state so that people can be trained and that aspect of
Yeah.
it. And him and NAMI and Utah Peer Network and Latino Behavioral hosted the first annual Wellness Day event, which was a huge success and brought just a ton of people together. to have a good time. And then, I do lots of events, and service work with like Soap to Hope, which they do a lot of work for women um, who have domestic violence or trafficking and things
Okay.
like that. January is amazing, and the work that her and Carrie do for that organization. So
Yeah.
anytime I can be of service, I show up for them.
Yeah.
Another organization that I just love and is near and dear is Addicts Fighting Back. They're
Okay.
in all pathways, um, which they just hold space for everyone, right? It's a
Yeah.
huge family, hold space for everyone, um, which is super cool. Utah County, they do everything,
Okay.
and they don't judge, right? You show up as you are, and if you're in need and you're going through something, they're there.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. The list goes on and on. Um, Own It just asked me. I'm going to help them this year to do their desert. There is space for people in recovery to do like open mics and present,
Oh,
like
okay.
poetry or music or different things like that. So that's super cool. Just lots of different opportunities. The Healing Utah Success Summit, that's a near
Mhm.
and dear. Mallory, Al, all of them. Um, this is the 5th year that they've been doing it.
Okay.
Um, and it's an amazing platform to bring awareness for all the things: suicide, mental
Yeah.
health, recovery, motivational speaking. Um, and that's the thing. Hope on Tap. That's probably the other one. I went to treatment with Saquon. She's one of my best friends. And she started this foundation to help people that struggle with HIV and Hep C.
Mhm.
People don't talk a lot about that, right? And there are a
No.
lot of
No.
resources.
Mhm.
Um, she started this and she goes out and she's in the trenches, right? Same thing with like Soap to Hope. They go
Yep.
out and they're in the trenches and they show up. And those are the type of people, right, that I surround myself with,
Yeah.
because it's important, right? Like at some point, like my end goal is I want to have like a recovery cafe or like, my own event planning / coaching, like LLC, to where
Mhm.
like all that's all I do, right? Like
Yep.
on my own time, like I'm just planning events and I have my recovery
Yep.
cafe because I love to cook, and people just can come together and eat good food and build bridges. And I mean, and my the end goal, that's what I'm working towards. So
Yep. I love that. I love that. And you have a
yeah,
goal and you're going towards
yes,
it and you have you're very clear about it. I think that is amazing, Amber, and all the it's crazy how much that you're involved in and just how just how much you're giving back. For somebody that is struggling with addiction, with um, an unhealthy relationship, anybody that's struggling, it seems like service really helped you to get outside yourself
mm-hmm.
and to stay, yeah, and to
Yeah.
stay, I don't know, just present in the way that you need to be. Is that something that you would recommend for people if they're just struggling and they don't have purpose and they don't know their why yet?
I think service is a key for me. When I got out of treatment, I came up north, right? I'm in like up north Utah now, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't know anybody, so I got out
Hmm.
of treatment, and I was just like, oh, okay, there's this service project at like Pioneer Park or Liberty Park. I don't remember which park it was. Mind you, I'm from like St. George, so like
Yeah.
it is never okay to use drugs in public,
Yeah.
like never, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like going and there's like drugs everywhere, like people are just smoking and like like needles out and like cops are
Yeah.
around. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, like is it,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough, right? Like Rachel and some other people were like, no, it's fine. Like, we're just here. We're going to meet them where they're at. We're going to feed
Yep.
them. We're going to give them some clothes. And I was just like, this is the coolest thing ever, right?
Yep.
Not like cool that they're using, but it was so cool to just be able to like meet them where they are, right?
Yep.
Like be able to like someone was like, "Will you say a prayer with me?" And then someone was like, "Can I get a hug?" Like, right? And they were hungry and like we were giving them clothes and I was just like, "Oh my god, this is like the coolest thing." And then there
Yep.
was like there's other moments too where like now that like I'm farther in my recovery, right? I'm like, ooh, I remember what it's like to be like on the other side, like, ooh, someone's coming out with like peanut butter and jellies today and popsicles and water. Like, I remember what it's like to be that person on the other side, hungry, right? And
Yep.
being like, how am I going to eat today, or whatever that looks like, or
Yep.
just not knowing and that hopeless feeling. And so service is always a way for you to get out of yourself, right? Like ego,
Yeah.
when we can let go of our ego and ourself, like that brings us back to like the reality of like
Yep.
we are all one choice away from a different life,
We
right?
are.
And so it's up to us to like choose our heart, right? Like not every day is easy,
No.
right? Like in my
No.
recovery, but like when I look back at my addiction, like that was not easy either.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and so it's like I'm going to either choose this hard or I'm going to choose this hard, but I get to make that choice.
Exactly. That is such a beautiful thought. And because you chose your heart and because you made those decisions every day, it led you to the place where you're able to be the person that you needed back then. And
Yes.
that's such a beautiful thought, and that's a testament to the fact that, like you said, you're one decision away from a whole different life. And I think that leads really greatly into the next thing that I wanted to ask is, you know, if there are people, let's say that there's listeners who are, like I said, struggling with addiction or they don't know how to get in recovery. What piece of advice are you going to give somebody who's struggling and who's like, wow, I want to be where Amber is one day? What can you tell them about success?
I mean, honestly, I think that my success came from just the willingness, right? Because um, sometimes people can go to treatment one time and it works,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes people go to treatment 20 times and it works the 21st time, right? Sometimes
Yep.
people never ever go to treatment, right? They
Yeah.
just decide and they have the willingness. But
Mm-hmm.
I will say this, this isn't something that you do alone, right? This isn't something that we do alone. I don't ever go through a day where I am not reaching out for help for something.
Yep.
Um, so know that you matter and you are worthy and you are deserving, and there is something on the other side. You have purpose. Um, there are, a lot of resources out there, and but I would say this, like, um, if you are in need and you need to get a hold of someone, um, you have my Instagram on there.
Yep.
Please reach out to me. There is if it's a mental health crisis, right? There's 988. Or also, I mean, you can reach out to it's mhautah.org that will have like our schedule for like our drop in if you're needing classes or things like that.
Okay.
Um, I mean, if you also go on my Instagram
Yeah.
or look me up on Facebook, any of the things that I said today, like I'm always sharing their pages and their resources.
Okay.
Um, just please reach out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I think the barrier to a lot of people getting help is they think, oh, people don't want to help me, or oh, I'm not worth help. And that's completely false. There are people out there like you, Amber, specifically
Yeah.
that want to help you. And so what I'll do, Amber, is I'll grab a list from you, and
Okay.
to listeners, I'll put that in the description as well. But you
Okay.
can find Amber on Facebook as the name that's on the screen right now, Amber Bride, and her Instagram tag is there as well. but I will put links to everything that you talked about in the description as well. But I think
Perfect.
that's the biggest step is, like you said, you're one decision away from changing your life, and you just have to ask. That asking for help could be that one decision for sure.
Yep.
I love
And
it.
listen, like, I'm not going to sit here and say that, like, it's going to be easy.
Yeah.
But I will tell you it's worth it. And I will tell you that you won't be alone,
Yeah.
right? Um, and you do matter. Like, the
Yeah.
world is better because you're in it,
Yep.
and you do matter. Even if I don't know you personally, like, you do matter.
Yep. Absolutely. And I you're such a great testament of that. You were in such a low place, you found community, you reached out for help, and you found yourself through service. And because of that, look at where you are today. You're impacting so many lives on a daily basis, and truly, you're a testament to what many people, myself included, consider what success is. So it's great, Amber.
Thank you.
Perfect. Well,
Thank you.
I appreciate you so much. I'm so
Yeah.
grateful that you came on here to share your story. You are I'm grateful that you shared your success with us today.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Amber, yeah, like I said, I'll put links in the description so people can
Okay.
get a hold of you. They can follow your awesome journey. And thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah. And I'll
All
email
right.
you right now. Thank you.